Hi, everyone. Mitch from PickDogs.com here with Steve Monahan for your weekly NFL football preview show. 14 games on tap this NFL weekend. Steve, got the jacket on there.
It's a little nippy here in North Jersey. Got the landscaper outside blowing the leaves, but it's been in the 30s lately. So winter is upon us here in the Northeast.
We got the landscapers coming today. They come every Thursday. We got a couple trees full of bananas I need them to take down for me, and got some other stuff.
It's growing here in Oakland, New Jersey. I can tell you that right now.
I'll tell you what the secret is to the Hawaii landscapers.
What's that?
You give when you see them working outside, you walk out with a couple popsicles, and you give them some nice organic popsicles.
Ooh,
makes their day.
Well, kindness goes a long way, huh?
It goes a long way. We have the nicest yard in the whole neighborhood, I would say.
For a reason. Popsicles.
Well, aside from their bill, you know.
What's going on? Golf today?
Of course. First I played the first hole or two in the dark, and I tell you, the first hole, get up on the first tee, hit one, I push it right, second shot, just a dead shank. I hit a palm tree, it bounced back into the fairway, I hit a wedge onto the green, two putted for a bogey, and kind of acted like it never happened. Pretty rough round all the way, though. I was scrambling most of the time. But we got NFL football tonight. We got a few college games. We went over that yesterday. A lot of people joining the Facebook group. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to guess this was referred somewhere else, but we'll take it.
We will.
Gladly. But and what I find is usually when the Facebook group goes over about 2,000 people, it just really becomes like this non-stop people joining. But anyways, Thursday night football, we got the Browns and the Steelers, two teams that hate each other's guts.
Yep.
And I like good hating on NFL.
That's like a good rivalry. That's damn sure.
So, what do you think about this one? The Browns favorite, I'm seeing 2.5, 3.
I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I've been not really taking the Steelers even as of late last week. I took the Rams. Steelers defense with Minka Fitzpatrick is really playing very well. Browns obviously very inconsistent despite the win over the Bills last week. I know the Browns are home, but I'll take the Pittsburgh Steelers here. I think James Conner is going to play. Steelers playing good football. I'll ride them.
I love the under in this game. I don't see the Browns scoring a lot of points. I know that they have some guys on that team that can score when they're in trouble, but I expect to see a lot of trouble. I also see a lot of drives on both sides settling for field goals. I could see Myles Garrett getting to Mason Rudolph. I could see them like having like a 3rd and 3 that becomes 4th and 15 and a field goal attempt. I could see that all day, and I could see T.J. Watt all over Baker Mayfield as he, I don't know. This is, and I've talked about Baker Mayfield a lot. I think Rex Ryan and I, it was almost like we had telepathy, talking about him. And, to me, Baker Mayfield, it's like he holds on to the ball too long. We know that. And then the other thing, which is a rookie thing, but it's not generally a second-year guy thing, is that in college you can outrun a lot of the guys. A quarterback's usually one of the better athletes on the team, and you can outrun a lot of the guys. But Baker Mayfield's not going to outrun anybody in the NFL. He's not Lamar Jackson.
Not even close.
So,
but Odell Beckham on the Browns hasn't had a freaking touchdown catch since week 2 or something. I mean, you talk about lacking production for a very expensive wide receiver, man. Things aren't good in Cleveland.
Yeah, to me, it's like I've always thought that guys that get traded, big name guys that get traded or free agents, 90% of the time, it hurts the team that loses the guy a lot more than it helps the team that gets the guy. I think we've seen it all the way back to Wilbur Marshall, Keith Jackson when he signed with the Dolphins, and these are like the first crop of free agents ever in the NFL. We saw that those guys, they hurt, like Wilbur Marshall leaving the Bears, hurt a lot more than it helped the Redskins after that. And, Keith Jackson leaving the Eagles just crushed them, and really he never was anything with the Dolphins after that point. And those were really the first big-name free agents there ever were in the NFL. Right. And we've seen it, many, many times. It's like you rarely see the big-name free agent, big-name traded guy that makes the big impact. The only guy who ever makes the big impact, who I've seen make the biggest impact, is Drew Brees. He's the only one. And, of course, that's because the Dolphins passed on him twice. And it's like, so he has the chip on his shoulder.
Was Reggie White a free agent or got traded?
Reggie White was...
I would throw that up there, top of my head. I thought he might have been a free agent. And he was as good as he was in Philly with the Packers.
Yeah, but I think when he got to the Packers, it was at kind of the end of his career, kind of like Joe Montana. He wasn't the same guy.
Big name free agent, though. Like it's like a bona fide Hall of Famer.
Right, but he wasn't a Reggie White was not Reggie White when he got to Green Bay. He wasn't the same.
Still pretty damn good.
Well, there are certain guys that are just going to be pretty damn good their whole career. It's like that they're going to go out. Basically, no matter what point they go out.
He made his name in Philly. I get it, but Reggie White was still very impactful for Green Bay. As good, no.
Like Ray Lewis, right? At the end of his career, he was still better than almost everybody else, but he wasn't the same guy that he was in the Giants Super Bowl as he was in the 49ers Super Bowl. But he was still good enough, right?
Pre-murder indictment or post-murder indictment?
Well, he was never indicted on charges.
Yeah, but our audience knows Ray. His fingerprints were kind of all over that. I couldn't resist myself. Sorry to rain on.
It's one of those things that it's kind of, it's an unfortunate thing that happened because he's
There's nothing funny about murder, people.
No, he's associated with murdering people when he never murdered anyone. In the NFL, Ray Caruth was never, brought back, and Aaron Hernandez wasn't about to make the big comeback before he hung himself.
Real murder.
These things, that's what happens to murderers. Thieves, murderers, they go to jail. Guys who hung out with some guy who killed somebody. You have an obligation to be a witness.
I got you.
Obstruction of justice. It's kind of just like with anything. It's like, if you steal from somebody, you might get away with it for a little bit, but it's like as soon as they catch up with you, it's like the hammer of justice will come down. It will come down. And anyways, I can go into a whole thing about that, but not going to. Not going there.
Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't be prudent.
Wouldn't.
Like George Bush. Thank you.
Anything.
HW, of course.
The big one.
Yep.
GB1. Got the Panthers versus the Falcons. The Panthers were 6.5-point favorites when this line opened, and the Falcons now just 4.5-point dogs. The Falcons 2-7 on the season. I've heard people saying they're going to run the table and make the playoffs. I don't see it, and I don't even see them winning this game. 56% of the public on the Panthers. Total inverse line movement. So Brett Favre was not a free agent. Brett Favre was traded. And the thing about Brett Favre and the trade, this is all legitimate stuff, is that he was a backup on the Falcons. And it was like he should have never been a backup on the Falcons. It's like this is the whole thing. And I lived in New York at this time, and this was the draft where the Jets drafted Keith McCants. Okay, this was the Keith McCants.
92? 1990?
It was something like that. This was the Keith McCants, Blair Thomas draft. Okay, this was that draft. Okay, yeah. Brett Favre went in the second round to the Falcons, and I worked in New York. I used to work on Wall Street, and I was a really bottom of the totem pole. It was one of my first jobs I ever had. Shearson Lehman Brothers. And these guys, we used to get the pamphlets of the draft, like these booklets. Mel Kiper had a book, and these other guys had, and sent it to you. And it was like this photocopied. They called it a book, but it was like a photocopied stack of paper. That's what he would mail you.
It's like a church bulletin.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was like this thing. It just said everything about everybody, like every player, like full notes and whatever. And I can tell you, we used to have our mock drafts and we would talk draft, and it was like as big as the draft is for everybody else today. And Steve and I, Steve has already said this, that 10 years before that, we were already talking draft, But that's how much I've always been into the draft. And, Brett Favre at Southern Miss. He beat Florida State, and they were a great Florida State. He didn't beat they were kind of like a Florida State team that just got.
They beat Willie Taggart's Florida.
It was the same as Evansville beating Kentucky. It was like that big of a
monumental. Yes.
When Jim Kelly at Miami beat Penn State when they were ranked number 1 in the country. It was like that big of an upset. But the thing is that the Giants fans, there was tons of Giants fans where I worked, and they had their circle. Like the Jets fans were happy with Keith McCants or Blair Thomas. They had like their circle, and that was going to be their guy because they were drafting way up there. They had just gotten
Blair Thomas for the record.
They had just gotten Bruce Coslett in as the head coach, and they really liked him. He wore no socks. He kind of was like the guy back then, and so the Giants are up to draft, and like everyone's all excited. We're getting Brett Favre, we need a quarterback and whatever. And they draft Jared Bunch from Michigan. And these guys, it was like my face when the Dolphins didn't draft Drew Brees and they took Jamar Fletcher. It's like I have never let it go. It's like I'm still talking about it.
Let it go.
I'm still talking about it. About it. And
he was out of Wisconsin, wasn't he, Jamar Fletcher or something?
Yeah, corner. Drew Brees is too short to play quarterback in the NFL. I don't understand.
It's questionable.
I didn't understand the Jared Bunch pick, a fullback out of Michigan. I did not understand that pick in the first round of the NFL draft with Brett Favre on the board, a guy with a cannon who would have, in New York, oh my God, he would have been bigger than Namath. He would have been bigger than Joe Namath in New York. And I think that the Giant fans of that era, they still talk about it the same way I talk about Brees and Fletcher. But, I don't think Brett Favre, I know him sitting on the bench in Atlanta and they traded for him. I'm talking about like Wilbur Marshall was kind of a first round draft choice, all pro, all world guy. And so was Keith Jackson, tight end, the Eagles out of Oklahoma. I mean, these were like the superstar players. Brett Favre was kind of like he was a backup quarterback, kind of the way Tom Brady was a backup quarterback on the bench.
It was from Southern Miss, to your point. Nobody ever heard of Southern Miss back then, really, to be honest.
Sims was not from anywhere either.
Morehead State.
Yeah,
it's
not even a state.
In 1979, nobody ever heard of Morehead State.
Somewhat. I mean, there's a lot of interpretations for that Morehead. I mean, it's definitely not a state. Some other now Facebook is going to show me like prostitute ads, right? Because they're listening to every word I said. It's like, it's like
Morehead State people are going to take offense to.
Half our audience is like, yeah, they never. It's like I'm always thinking about hot chicks, but they never advertise those on my Facebook.
Yeah, right.
It's like I know I have some friends, some of our old Boston friends that are probably like, all I get are porn ads. It's like
a couple friends come to mind that I won't name their names.
Anyways, back to this. Steve Young sucked before he got to San Francisco, but Steve Young is still getting paid by the USFL LA Express, and Steve Young was a top pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But he was not good in Tampa, but neither was Doug Williams. And neither was Vinny. Neither was a lot of guys.
Neither was Tampa as a whole.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't think. Not only do I not think the Falcons win this game, I don't even think they cover. I'm going to take the Panthers. I think they beat them.
Me too. I'm all in on the Panthers, despite the Falcons surprisingly winning last week, convincingly winning against the Saints. But no, I think that's a fluke. No way Atlanta runs the table. I'll take the Panthers.
I'd like to see more quarterbacks like Brett Favre. You just don't see a lot of those quarterbacks anymore. where it's just, tough as nails. He never really took, like, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are more like, crybaby quarterbacks where if you touch them, they start whining and milking the officials. Brett Favre was really never that kind of guy. He was like, he had the battle with, Warren Sapp, the like 300-pound defensive lineman was like his nemesis, and they took pride in battling it out against each other. And when Strahan got the sack against Brett Favre to break the record, and it was basically Favre like fell down, Sapp was pissed, He was just like, that's my guy.
Well, I was pissed. I'm still not forgiving Brett Favre for that.
Why does Michael Strahan get the pass on hitting his wife and Ray Rice and Kareem Hunt and don't get the pass?
Right. It's a valid question.
I don't understand it. Why? Not only does he get the pass, I mean, he gets the
gets a
pass.
Get out of jail free card, no problem.
I mean,
no doubt.
He's on, what's his game show he's got? One of the good ones.
Yeah.
He's not
a fan.
I don't think he'll be replacing Alex Trebek anytime soon.
I mean, he's a media darling, to your point, and really, I mean, there's a double standard there.
Also, shout out for Alex Trebek. We wish him the best and best health and whatever.
One of our favorites, Alex.
Huge fan. Huge fan. I love the way that he disregards the contestants' little stories, like if they're really bad ones. Yeah, it's like, tell us a little about this. Well, I got the puppy at the pound, and it's like, okay. I like that, and also the snarky, condescending. Sorry, we were looking for moops.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was moops.
It says moops. It's Moors, you idiot. Sorry, moops. We got the Ravens taking on the Texans. This is one of the best young quarterback battles we have. People hated the Lamar Jackson pick. I love that Lamar Jackson pick, and I mean, he needs blocking to make it work. And I think that the Texans can cause some problems for him. The Ravens 4-point favorites in this one. I think this one's going to be a close game. 7-2 against 6-3. The Ravens not good against the number at home. The only cover they've had all year was against the Patriots. And the Texans 3-1 against the spread on the road. The loss, I think, was at Indy.
Yep. I like the Ravens home. Sorry.
I'm going to take the Texans. I just think I like a little bit of inverse line movement. And I just think that, I think Deshaun Watson is a little better than Lamar Jackson. A
little more seasoned. He's got out of the gate a little bit quicker than Lamar, right?
I think he's a better quarterback.
Flat out, I think he is overall. But Lamar
I do like
Jackson,
the way that they're not afraid to run Lamar Jackson. I think that's a smart thing.
Again, that run Lamar Jackson had, man, Sunday, really, it was outstanding. You saw the athleticism of this guy really, really on full parade.
We got the Vikings up against the Broncos here, and 10.5 points, Minnesota Vikings. Of course, the Broncos musical chairs at quarterback now that Joe Flacco is gone. Meanwhile, the Vikings going to Dallas. They beat the Cowboys outright as a dog. Of course, I gave that out. We also hit the halftime on that one. Those of you that watch my halftime show, just this is a team that's kind of feeling itself right now. And, when you look back at their loss at Chicago earlier this season on the road, it's like, man, if they could play Chicago now, I don't think it would have the same result. So, I'm not sure. I think that, we got a pretty interesting Minnesota Vikings team. I'm not saying we have an interesting game in this one.
Yeah.
I think this is a whitewash.
Yeah. What's the over-under on this game?
Let's see. The over-under on this is 40.
Well, I like the over in this game because I think the Vikings, when they play at home, they're playing well. And I think combined with the Broncos.
So we always look, in these games, we kind of look at these games as the triplets, right? The old model, the quarterback, the best running back, and the best receiver on the team. So for the Vikings, do we have it with Cousins and Cook and with Diggs? I mean, you get Thielen in there with them. This all of a sudden, you got a nice tight end. You got some skill position players now. All of a sudden, you got a lot of options. And that's just the first level. The Vikings are starting to look good, and that defense is rock solid. I mean, these guys, I think, are contenders. They are all of a sudden contenders, I think, in the NFC this season.
I think the Vikings can score a lot of points, and combined with the Broncos, I like the over, especially at 40. And I like the Vikings at home, so I'm going to go just with the over here in points. It's too many points for me to touch.
I'm going to take the Vikings. I think they just beat the crap out of the Broncos. I do. I think this is just a stomping. I don't even see how it's even close. I just don't see it because I think that once the Vikings, if they can get up on the Broncos at home, which they do, to teams, I don't see how the Broncos have any answers whatsoever because I think Lindsey is a nice running back, but he's not going to carry the load against that defense. That defense is only getting better. Move on to our next game. Got the Dolphins and the Bills. Break up the Dolphins' 2-game winning streak, 2-3 against the number at home. All of a sudden, this team that nobody thought was going to win a game all season, they're hotter than the New England Patriots over the last 2 games.
15 games off the pace of the 17-0 1972 perfect Dolphins, huh?
Nick Bonacani not there to piss off the Patriot fans this year as the 49ers went down.
That's right. He's going to miss the champagne toast.
Yeah, most of the Boston people, the guy who they really hate with the champagne toast is Nick Bonacani. He was a former Patriot, but for some reason they hate him the most.
That is right.
It's always like, I hate Nick Bonacani. Of course, Nick passed away this year.
Yes, he did. He was a good man, Nick Bonacani.
There's a lot more to Nick Bonacani than just the guy cracking the champagne. Nick Bonacani was an overachiever. He was a leader, and he was also a leader in the community. When his son was injured,
the Miami Project raised a hell of a lot of money.
He's changed lives. We saw, remember the tight end out of the University of Miami was injured. He was on Buffalo, gets injured, breaks his neck. On the field, they fill his spine up with fluid, get him off the field, and he's walking a week later. So, this is all the results of Nick Bonacani's work. But anyways, we got the Dolphins and the Bills, and this is the Dolphins at one point had a 20-game winning streak over the Bills, and I think the Bills kind of paid them back for a long time too when they had those Andre Reed and Thurman Thomas teams. James Lofton also on those teams. There's a guy that switched teams a couple times that's made a good impact. He on 3 different teams. He was good on the Raiders, he was good on the Packers, and he was good on the Bills. He was good on all 3.
That's a good one, James Lofton.
Yeah, it's rare you find the guy that was really good on multiple teams. Deion Sanders, Charles Haley. I mean, they're out there, but it's a handful of guys that have had really productive careers on each team. I mean, maybe like Randy Moss had a great season in New England. I wouldn't call him I wouldn't think he fits that category.
I agree. But the Bills are going to the Dolphins, and I like the Bills here. I think the Bills, again, they took it on the chin last week. They got to pile up their victories to make the playoffs. Just think they're a better team. Dolphins like you said, break up the Dolphins. I see ineptitude this weekend. Dolphins coming back to reality, but I like the Bills here.
I like the Dolphins in this one. I'm going to take the points in my homer. Why not? Rod Zawacki, the puck dog, wearing his Miami Dolphins hat on this morning's show. I like the Dolphins in this one. And I just think that winning breeds winning, losing breeds losing, and I think the Dolphins break it down, build it back up, and it's like they're playing for the draft choice. No, we're not. I like that. It's like, so the Bengals playing for the draft choice? No one's really concerned about that because they know,
they're trying to win a game. I get it. I mean, it's a loose term, tanking, I guess. So when things are going bad, are they tanking, quote unquote?
Yeah. So
but they're all professional football teams. They're trying to win football games.
If you're a quarterback on the Dolphins, what's the point of tanking if you think they're drafting a quarterback? so you can not have a job next year? I don't even
Pretty
understand
much.
it. I mean, how many head coaches in today's NFL, firing coaches it happens all the time. Jim Caldwell, that I always refer back to that season when the Colts, when Peyton Manning was injured, and they said Jim Caldwell was tanking it with the Colts. They drafted Andrew Luck, but Jim Caldwell wasn't there for Andrew Luck's rookie season. He was gone. So it doesn't even make any sense. It's like, it's professional athletes are so competitive. Everyone that I know of them is super competitive. Any professional athlete I've ever met, just super, super competitive. And I'm not saying, that it's just a different mindset. Steve and I talked about our intramural football team, before, and one of our friends, Moses, who's also no longer with us. I mean, he was a professional athlete that it was before he was a professional. He played on our team, and he just had a different level of competitiveness than any of our opponents that we played. He just, And I asked him, where that came from, and he told me, pretty candidly, that his father made him sign up for 5 leagues at a time when he was a kid, and they would drive from one to the other playing hockey. He would sometimes have 3 games in a day, and he'd be the captain of all 5 teams. He's like, and my father, we get in fights in the stands.
Totally. So when we interviewed Moses, we were like, I like what you've done here. Yes, you can play with us.
It's like, Moses was thrown out of school because he pulled the sweater over. Some kid said something to him. He pulled the sweater over his head and beat him within an inch of his life, and they threw him out of school. He ended up going to UMass Boston and won the national championship at that level twice. Anyways, so
Call it fate. Call it fate.
Later on was in the Buffalo Sabres organization. But anyways, got Indianapolis Colts against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts 3-point favorites, and Nick Foles back in the fold for the Jags.
Right.
Not over for the Jags in the AFC South at all. We got the Texans in the South that are 6-3 but are on the road at Baltimore. You got the Jags are 4-5. The Colts 5-4. Man, things are tight in that AFC South, which I think is the best division in football.
Yeah, it's very competitive. I agree. The Colts really haven't been playing well of late. I've been touting them as, I would not say a surprise team, but early first quarter of the season, they've been playing real well. Jacoby Brissett, we know he's banged up a bit. Colts have come back to earth. They're 5-4 now. With Foles coming back, the Jags being 4-5, this is a big week for them. Is Nick Foles going to light it up? I don't know, but I like the Jaguars on the road here to get a victory here.
I like the Jags too. Nick Foles is one of those guys. This is his 3rd team. He's only been good on the Eagles. He was terrible on
really
the Eagles.
Has, and you're right.
He was only good on the Eagles, and I'll tell you, as a starter on the Eagles, if he was named the actual starter, he's not really as good in that spot either. He was really only been good as a backup who's been playing in a backup role. But this is kind of like backup for him because he hasn't really been in that much. Speaking of really great matchups, I mean, get your tickets to this one. We got the Redskins and the Jets. These are 2 teams that before they moved to new stadiums had the longest waiting list for season tickets. These 2 and the Giants had the longest waiting list for season tickets of anybody, 40, 50 years long. I don't think that's the case anymore for either of those teams. Meanwhile, the Redskins 0-4 at home. They have 1 win. It's against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, the Jets lost to the Dolphins, 2-7, coming off of a win against the Giants, where all of a sudden they decided they wanted to play. It was strange to see. I think a lot of it was the Giants shooting themselves in the foot, but at the same time, the Jets they got it done. Can't take it away from them. But 1-3 on the road, 3-6 against the spread this season, 0-4 straight up on the road for the Jets, and the Redskins favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, the Redskins declared Dwayne Haskins will run the show for the remainder of the season. Yeah, good, bad, and different. That's going to happen. The Jets, they're way too inconsistent, even though they beat the Giants last week. It's still a tough place to play, as bad as the Redskins are going to Washington. So for some reason, I'll take the Redskins at home here over the Jets.
I'll take the Redskins too. I think the Jets
They
they
awful.
just stink.
They're awful.
The probability of them winning 2 games in a row is slim and none. You got
Exactly.
the Cowboys going up against the Lions. Everyone knows I'm a Lion hater from way back. The Cowboys, I would say at 5-4, are a disappointing 5-4. The Lions 3-5-1 going into this one. I mean, these are 2 Thanksgiving Day teams playing against each other. They should just play each other on Thanksgiving this year and then let somebody else do it. But that would never happen because they're both always home.
That's true. That's true.
So,
Well, Stafford's still banged up. I think the Lions are getting a little heat from the league about their handling of this injury. But Matthew Stafford apparently is banged up a little bit. We talked about Kerryon Johnson still out. Cowboys, again, coming off a disappointing loss to the Vikings. This is where I like the Cowboys to cover. So they go 6-4. And I'll take the Cowboys here. They're a better team than the Lions, that's for sure.
I like the Cowboys too. I think the Lions just stink. I've said that all along. I've been pretty down on the Lions for forever, right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with the Cowboys. That's gonna be my pick here. Let's see what we got next. We go to Tampa Bay, where the Bucs are hosting the Saints. Saints 5.5-point favorites on this one, coming off of last week's head scratcher against the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't see the Saints laying an egg 2 weeks in a row. They're just too good. Breeze is back. Going to the state of Florida, playing in good weather. And again, I'll always tout my anti-Jameis Winston stand. But I like the Saints to rebound here. I'll take the Saints on the road.
Yeah, I'd like the Saints too. I think it's almost too obvious of a pick, but I'm going to go for them in this spot. Let's see what we got next. We go to San Francisco, where the Niners are hosting the Cardinals. The Niners handled on Monday night. I think they were lucky to get where they got on that one.
Yeah.
So the Niners 10.5-point favorites.
It's too many points to me. Kyler Murray's playing well enough where I like the Cardinals on the road. I hate to say this because they're the Cardinals, but the fact that San Francisco's coming off a short week, they got off to such a good start. I think they're probably going to start coming back to earth a little bit. And with Kyler Murray, I mean, as a rookie, kid's learning on the job, but he's been pretty good for the Cardinals. 10.5 is a little too many points for me. I'll take the Cardinals here. I like the Niners to win, but I'll take the Cards and the points.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Niners. I really don't like what they've done. I know that the first game was close, but there was a long touchdown in there that kind of dressed it up a little bit. So I like the 49ers in this one. I don't know. Tough call. I think the Niners are a little bit overrated, but 10.5 is a ton of points, but it's down from 14. 62% of the public on the Cardinals on the road. Go to Philadelphia, where the Eagles are hosting the Patriots. The Eagles 3.5-point home dogs in this one. 3-1 straight up at home. 2-2 against the New England Patriots. It's back-to-back road games, but they had a bye week in between.
You know what? I've been taking Patriot stock all year long, but the Eagles have a lot to play for because the Cowboys, they're tied with the Cowboys in the NFC East, even though the Cowboys got the tiebreaker. The Eagles have this is a hard game for them because their schedule gets a lot easier, is my point. But they're home here. And for some reason or another, I think I'm going to take the Eagles at home here. I think the Patriots will wind up like 13-3 before it's all said and done, and I think this is one of their losses, so I'll take the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are laying under the radar, and they're a good team. As long as Wentz is healthy, and he's still healthy, so I'll take the Eagles at home.
I'm going to take the Pats. I just, I'm not a big Patriots backer, but I think that the Patriots are just the better team. I think Carson Wentz against Bill Belichick is bad, very bad, very very bad.
Very bad.
Very very bad.
Very very bad.
We got the Raiders here against the Bengals. Raiders 10.5-point favorites. The Bengals now 0-9. They're looking at a prime candidate for that number 1 overall pick. They've been competitive, 3-1 against the spread on the road. The Raiders 3-1 against the spread at home. Raiders 5-4 this season. The Chiefs are in first place at 6-4. They play on the road on Sunday night. I mean, the Raiders. This could be a story.
It's true. So Ryan Finley will be playing his second game as a Cincinnati Bengal. And like we talked about earlier in the show, is any NFL team out there really quote unquote tanking? No. Like you said, Cincinnati's been competitive. They were on the verge of a win or two earlier in the year. But they're going to Oakland, and again, this isn't Ken Stabler and Dave Casper and Ted Hendricks Oakland that we're talking about. However, Oakland's a better team, and Cincinnati's going to play on the left coast. I'll take the Raiders at home here in the points.
I think the Raiders just dominate in this one. I just think that the Bengals just don't have a lot of options right now. I know they have been competitive in spots, but the Raiders have really taken care of business, for the most part this season. I think they take care of business here. We go to Sunday night football, and I'll tell you, normally it's been the Sunday night game that's been the best of the primetime games, and that's because the Patriots were just on Sunday night against the Ravens, is why we don't have it. But I think that Eagles-Patriots game would have been a much better game than this. But we got the Rams at 5-4, coming off of that loss in Pittsburgh, outright loss, and the Bears. I don't know. Steve's off the Trubisky wagon. We've got two quarterbacks here that I hated going into the season, and I still can't stand to do it. Still can't stand them.
Well, I tell you what, Jared Goff, like I said, I've been touting him. But the eye test is such that you're completely right, where he's regressed this year. He's not played well at all. And the Bears got a good defense. I like the Rams at home here. I think the Rams take care of business against the Bears. Mitch Trubisky on the road, I don't like that at all.
No, I don't like the Bears, but man, I don't like the Rams either. I kind of like the under in this game. That's where I'm gonna go, in the under in the Bears Rams.
I'm serious about the points.
Don't love it. Got the Chargers and the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football just, I don't know. It's kind of lost the luster that it used to have when it was on ABC. And, it's just not. Doesn't seem to be the event it used to be. I know the players still love it. Everyone still watch it. We still watch it. But it's not the same. It's like the guys in the booth change all the time. I mean, even on Sunday night, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, they've been there for a while now, and Al was there before that with John Madden. It's like it seems that they have more of a I think having that consistent combination in the booth is a part of it.
I think Sunday Night Football has trumped Monday Night Football as far as, like you said, the consistency of Al Michaels and Collinsworth. Well, you got Booger McFarland, no knock on this guy. Super Bowl champion with Tampa. Remember him at LSU. He's a good football player. He's very, I think Booger McFarland actually is a good analyst, game analyst, that type of thing.
Well, he's fine. He's way better than Jason Witten. Way better than Jason Witten. But the issue that I have is that there's no consistency in the booth. There just isn't.
There isn't. No, absolutely not.
You get guys and you kind of stick with them, and it's like we've been with ESPN for a while now covering the Monday Night Football game, and it's like you just don't have like Dandy Don and Howard Cosell and Frank Gifford, and you just don't have it.
I mean, I'm a huge Dennis Miller fan, like from a comedy perspective. But Dennis Miller in the booth back in the day, come on, it was pathetic.
Oh, man. Tony Kornheiser.
Yeah, right.
And they've tried everything.
Yep.
It's like,
But anyway, we got the Chiefs and the Chargers.
I
So.
thought John Gruden was as good as it got for them.
Gruden was good. I agree. So, Chiefs and the Chargers. What are your thoughts?
I like the Chargers.
I think the Chargers, after their first half woes, so to speak, and again, this is Phillip Rivers we're talking about, but I think the Chargers are starting to play much better. I think the Chiefs are overrated. I like the Chargers playing better football, and I'll take the Chargers at home.
But these are Andy Reid type teams, that where they generally are strong in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, they start to wilt a little bit. They're always a little bit frail, and I don't, they just don't seem to have they're not like rugged like the Vikings or the Cowboys or like the Steelers. They're always more like a dink and dunk and like little fast guys, and so that's and that's how guys get injured, in those plays. So. I don't know. I like the Chargers. I think that they're just a little heftier, better. I think you have a divisional game on the road for the Chiefs. It's like to be favored at night on a divisional game on the road. This doesn't even make any sense. This is the Mahomes factor, and you got to bet it. You got to take advantage of it when you can. I got sucked in on the Titans last week, and I still are on the Chiefs against the Titans, and I don't know. I still think they should have covered. I mean, they have the field goal. They're lining up with under a minute left to go for a field goal to go up by 8. In a game they're laying 7. The guy can't even hold on to the ball when they snap it. And then, at that point, I know I'm not going to cover, so I'm rooting for the Titans to beat them. And they do. It's like, when Ryan Tannehill drives the ball down your throat, with less than a minute left to play, you got bigger problems than Patrick Mahomes' ankle.
Yep, I agree.
But anyways, that wraps up today's show. We'll do a quick recap. Steve likes the Steelers tonight. I got the under. We both like the Panthers. I like the Texans and the points. I don't know who wins the game. Steve likes the Ravens. I like the Vikings against the Broncos. Steve likes the over. I have the Dolphins. Steve has the Bills. We both have the Jaguars. We both have the Redskins and Cowboys and Saints. I have the 49ers. Steve likes the Cardinals. I got the Patriots. Steve likes the Eagles. I like the under in the Rams-Bears. Steve likes the Rams. We both got the Chargers.
Bam.
That's it. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with Football Free-for-All. All the questions will come from our live audience. Another good show. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thanks for having me, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
We beat the hour time limit, which is pretty good.
Not that. Cool. All right.